Good morning, everybody. I know it's 9 o'clock, but we had a rainy night in Georgia last night, so I may have a few dragging in. So I'm gonna give everybody maybe just another minute or two, and we'll get kicked off here. I see Commissioner Atwood is all ready to go. But if y'all don't mind, let me give a few members another minute or so to jump online, and then we'll kick it off. All right, Commissioner Atwood, I think we've got enough members online now. Before I get started, just a few quick announcements, and then we'll turn it over to you. But for you agencies that are on this morning, I did want to recognize we do have two new members to this subcommittee of general government, Representative Stephen Meeks and Representative Stacey Evans. So they are new members to this committee. So just wanted to let everybody know that. And members, if you will, just continue to be on the lookout for emails from Ms. Sheila about our meeting notices. And again, I just want to thank Media Services, House Media Services for making all of this, or giving all of us the ability to do this virtually so that we can all stay safe and continue to do our jobs. And then also need to give a shout out to David Hartman, our budget person. He's been working hard trying to get all this information rounded up. So appreciate all his hard work. But other than that, welcome. Good to see everybody this morning, or talk to everybody this morning, whichever it may be. Some of you I can't see, but Commissioner Atwood, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the members of the committee. Thank you for what you're doing and for what you have done for the citizens of Georgia, especially during this pandemic. It's good to be back with you. I had the honor of serving with many of you, and it's good to see our new and not so new members coming back, particularly Representative Evans. Glad to see you back, Representative. We were able to serve together, and always thought a lot of Representative Evans as much as I did all of you. So it's a thrill for me to see you again. I am Alex Atwood. I'm honored to be able to speak to you and the citizens of Georgia as the Commissioner for the Department of Administrative Services. I have with me today, Mr. Chairman, our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Paulette Petty, our Division Director for Risk Management, Mr. Wade Dameron. I think we also have Judge McKaylee calling in from the Office of State Administrative Hearings. They're administratively attached to DOES. I'm not sure if he's on there or not, but he may be checking in. For the amended FY21 budget, we'll be working off of pages 3 and 4 of the tracking sheet, section 12, top of the page. DOES supports the governor's recommendation. We have no changes. I'll certainly defer to the chair for any questions the members may have. But Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to first very quickly give the committee an overview of DOES and what we've been doing since last we spoke, particularly during the pandemic. As legislative branch, to fulfill your responsibility, I think it's imperative upon us in the executive branch to communicate well with the committee, and I'd like to be able to do that for a few seconds if you'll allow me. First, Mr. Chairman, since being appointed, I was appointed March 2019. I've been very honored to lead a truly outstanding group of public servants, and through my life, as many of you know, I think that I've been very fortunate to be able to serve in several public and private leadership roles. And I could honestly say that I've I have rarely seen such an outstanding group of professionals as I've been blessed to lead at DOAS. I'm very thrilled with each and every one of them. We have 5 essential program operating areas within DOAS. We have our Human Resource Administration, which provides a business approach to our entire state enterprise. We offer our executive branch agencies and authorities, public corporations, human resource support in a myriad of areas, as well as very ably managing our flexible benefits program under the leadership of Deputy Commissioner Al Howe, among many other efforts. Our state purchasing division is a real jewel, in my opinion, for the state of Georgia. They have over $1.2 billion with a B in statewide contracts that they manage, and under the leadership of Deputy Commissioner Lisa Eason, SPD was ranked #1 in 2018 and #2 in 2019 nationally as the best in the nation for procurement. And I'm very, very proud of them, as I am all of the entities at DOAS, and our remaining 3 entities is fleet management, surplus property, and risk management. They've also done a wonderful job. Fleet oversees over 20,000 vehicles, vessels, aircraft, trailers, including fleet management and our fuel card program. Our surplus property conducts 4,000 internet sales annually, returning millions back to the agencies. Risk management, well, we're the insurance company for the state of Georgia, I think. We direct the state's internal workers' compensation. We handle liability, property, unemployment, insurance programs, along with managing the Georgia State indemnification program for public officers and educators, providing an expertise in risk management, I believe, is second to none. During the pandemic, our work hasn't changed. I've often been asked, when are y'all opening up? Well, we've never closed. Proudly can say that. The pandemic hit us almost overnight. And since hitting Georgia, it's literally been, I know, a 24/7 operation for Governor Kemp and those agencies charged with the direct responsibility for dealing with this crisis. And as such, DOAS has also been fully engaged to support the governor's efforts in response to the pandemic. All of our divisions have been actively engaged in one way or another. I've got, probably 3 or 4 pages of accomplishments we've done just in this one area, but some of the highlights are that during the crisis, and this is something, Mr. Chairman, that I learned in the military, that making information available in a rapidly changing dynamic environment is always important, particularly to our customers who rely on DOAS leadership for leadership. And one of the first things that we sat down as an executive team and made a determination is, let's get information out that's good, reliable information that people can depend on. And we needed to be in a position to effectively communicate that information and to update that information. And so we launched a website as dedicated COVID-19 related web pages for each of our business units, because each of the organizations that depend on those units have varying needs. Working with the truly dedicated folks over at Georgia Emergency Management Agency, we helped in the sourcing of critical PPE equipment and supplies. Working with our established statewide suppliers and various consortiums, our state purchasing division was able to locate additional needed supplies. For example, very, very quickly, once we were contacted, we were able to get 4 million additional isolation gowns, 3 million N95 face masks, 55,800,000 nitrile gloves, 1 million medical surgical face masks, and the list goes on and on. We have some Georgia fans I know in the room. For University of Georgia alone, we sourced over 400 cases of hand sanitizer and 1,200 hand sanitizer dispensers. So, being a supporter of the dogs, I was glad to see that. But we also helped take care of everybody else too. And we literally vetted hundreds of PPE suppliers, keeping our eye out for fraud and scams. We worked with the Department of Economic Development on creating a Georgia-made critical medical supplies program. The goal of this, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the goal was to help match Georgia manufacturers who could provide PPE supplies to local government. And we performed weekly monitoring of our state contract suppliers to ascertain supply chain disruptions and interruptions and impacts. And we provided updates to our customers. And it was a dynamic environment. And looking at education, We worked with the Georgia Department of Education and the Governor's Office of Student Achievement to locate such things as 14,000 Chromebooks and study tables for grades 4 through 12 and touchpads for our K-3 students. And we worked with the UGA to determine sourcing strategy for the purchase of outdoor student classrooms to ensure that our campuses could do social distancing requirements. We had over 1.3 million in expenditures for temporary help to process unemployment claims and appeals for the Department of Labor. And there were so many things that we did. I mean, when the Georgia Technology Authority reached out to us one day and they needed help in locating surplus laptops due to the agency's conversion to very quickly moving into a teleworking environment, our DOAS surplus property contacted our small business partner, Premier Surplus, and they coordinated very quickly, almost overnight, 100 refurbished laptops at GTA for loan to those requesting agencies. And this was a huge relief for those agencies, which likely would have been forced to identify funds to pay for them. And working nights, working weekends, I remember with some very changing rules and regulations, our HRA team, in consultation with our DOAS legal staff, they reviewed all the federal laws related to COVID-19 leave, and they implemented on a statewide basis and offered assistance to our human resource directors on the new laws and provided virtual training for those directors and adopted a list of frequently answered questions to assist our employees statewide. And Mr. Chairman, I just can't be prouder of them. I wish we had more time this morning. I could spend an hour talking to you about what our folks have done. It's not Alex Atwood, it's my folks there. They're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. But if I could finish out with one last thing that's important, very important to us among all the important things that we do. And this is something that directly impacts your constituents. And I'm trying to get the word out on this thing. After receiving direction from Governor Kim, many of you may have heard of this, he wanted to make Georgia the best place in the nation for small business. As you know, small businesses employ the majority of folks in our state. Georgia has been recognized the last 7 or 8 years for the best place to do business, but we want it to be also known as the best place for small business. So working with other state entities, such as the UGA Small Business Development Center and the Department, Georgia Tech Procurement Assistance Center, and DOT and Georgia First Commission, we employed strategies to help achieve that goal. Pardon me. And specifically, one of the first things we did, we increased our outreach, our training, and our resources, and including additional opportunities for virtual training that has now touched over 4,000 potential suppliers, including small businesses. We've launched a dedicated space for small businesses through our webpage with reliable resources. On the DOAS website, we've worked with our partners in state government just before the pandemic to introduce a small business symposium. Now, we have been doing and I hope some of you can come to that when we're able to kick it off when the pandemic's over, but we did a very large procurement conference on Jekyll Island every year. My first year in office, we had over 811 folks that turned out for that in the convention center, and it was very successful. But I wanted to do something, our state purchasing folks wanted to do something that would impact the small business person. The man or woman trying to run their business can't take off a week and go to Jekyll Island. So we worked with Greg Dozier and the wonderful people over at the Technical Schools of Georgia. I needed something cheap that I could go into. They provided that. And we hosted our very first small business symposium in Dublin, Georgia. It cost the attendees, pardon me, $25. That included lunch. And they learned from the experts in 10 or so classes how to break in, how to do business with the state of Georgia. And what we're going to do with both these symposiums and the symposiums where we do it in person is we're going to host these across the state. But when we were shut down due to COVID in doing our training, we very quickly switched to virtual. And I can happily report to you, we just did our first virtual small business symposium, and we almost doubled the number of attendees. And we're finding this across the enterprise, that more people show up for the virtual training than show up normally. And we've created an online tutorial for registration for signing up for these. Very easy to do. And our goal is to connect businesses with opportunities. And it's a self-serving goal, Mr. Chairman, because if I do that, we're going to get more competitors. More competitors mean better pricing. Better pricing means a better break for the taxpayer as well as the small business. So I'm going to stop there. If I'm excited about what we're doing, that's a good read. I am. We've done other things to save money, such as floor consolidation and such, but I'll save that for maybe another day to talk to you, or if we have any questions. But thank you for allowing me to speak at least a few minutes, Mr. Chairman, tell you some of the fun stuff we're doing over DOS.
Yes, no, well, thank you, Commissioner, that your agency is vital to the daily operations of our state. So we appreciate what you're doing over there for sure. And for you committee members, just to remind you, if you've got a question, if you'll just hit something in the chat or raise your hand or holler at David or whatever, and he'll recognize you and we'll get your question answered. But I do have just a couple, Commissioner, maybe just to give the members a minute. I know last time we talked, there was some concerns about the obligations on the workman's comp side of things. What's kind of the status there? Are we in good shape there now, or have all the obligations been met? Or
well, it's a continuing challenge for us. You know, our original FY21 budget, we increased billing by $5 million. We had an appropriation of about $1 million. With overall building assessment of budget increase of $5 million. As most of the committee and some of the committee may not know, for direct DOAS appropriations, we have, I think, last I checked, about 1.9% of our operating budget comes from actual state appropriated dollars. The rest of our budget comes from assessments. And of course, risk management makes up the great majority of the money we spend in that area. Our additional funds have been allowing us to address unexpected expenses and that may arise and has arisen, it may arise in the fiscal year. What we have seen is some increased premiums, inflation. With the way it's trending right now in our workers' compensation, we have a small cushion. Overall, we continue to see a decrease in claim costs and a slight decrease in year over year operational costs for the program. I hate to say anything good came out of COVID. What we have noticed is that the money we were spending tended to go down a little bit because of people not going to the doctor, that sort of thing. The COVID impact to date has been minimal as the cases that have been brought forward have been simple. Non-complex medical care generally. There have been some that have been rather complex and some that frankly, horribly so, have been, we've had some deaths, if you know, but the impact may be worse in the event the cases become more complex and the long-term COVID impacts to our employees. But right now it seems to be remaining stable. As of December, we incurred about 411,000, I believe it was, in COVID-19 related expenses, but we were able to recover the full amount from the CARES Act Relief Fund. We've been looking at some settlement. You know, we're always pushing settlement as much as we can. We've got about 4,700 open cases. There is a large percentage of claimants and plaintiffs' attorneys, I think, that would be interested in settlement. But due to some issues with historical funding, we're not able to settle as many as we might like. But the fund is maintaining, and right now we have a relatively we have a cushion. In our significant injury trust fund, we've got about 113 open cases. Those tend to be older, more complex medical issue cases. The patients are a little older, and as a result, the desire there to be settling is not really prevalent. So that's kind of the best analysis I could give. Wade, can you add anything to that?
Judge Atwood, that was perfect. At this point, I agree. As things continue to forward during this fiscal year, we should be sitting with some cushion at the end of the fiscal year. But Judge Atwood gave you the perfect summation. Appreciate that.
Good. I think we've got a question. Chairman Smith, did you have a question?
I do. Good morning to everyone. And Commissioner Atwood, it's good to see you where you are. I enjoyed serving with you.
Likewise.
I know
Chair.
you're holding down the coast for us too, right?
Well, I hadn't seen much of it lately, but I'm trying from afar.
So first of all, the first question is, could you give us just a list of your contact information with your different divisions as we as legislators get calls from constituents, and how to reach you and how to follow up on that? And then my second question, the surplus property is really an interesting area of your job responsibilities. And I've named it the Capitol's Attic because there's so much stuff in there. And I think the committee might like to get an idea of that sometime, Mr. Chairman, to see what it's like. And also, how do you handle disposing of the items in the surplus?
Well, it's kind of a secret weapon here at DOAS. We can do an awful lot of it. I've got a true professional in Steve Eakin. He heads it. He is a retired Navy chief, and let me tell you, he runs the place like a Navy chief, or Coast Guard chief. I'm sorry, but in fact, the first guy I met when I came here was Steve. I got here real early, and I was looking for coffee, and I wandered around and found him there about 5 or 5:30. Drinking his coffee and doing his work, and a great guy. And the way that worked, the way it used to work, and some of you may remember this, the state of Georgia had massive warehouses down on the south side of Atlanta, and state agencies would drag their equipment in there. And somebody came up with a very good, smart way of doing business, because it costs money to maintain the building and bring things in. So we just leave it where if a vehicle is there on the lot of a particular entity, that's where it stays. And then they want to surplus it, they contact us, and we look at surplusing, and we handle it via online sales. And people can go online. We identify when the sales come up, and they're able to bid right there. They can go out and look at the item, and then we can do everything, almost everything virtual. We do some live sales, but not many. And it's a very efficient, cost-effective way of doing business, and we can move an awful lot of property, and that money comes back to our agencies, and it's a good way of doing business. And I'd love to, and that's an area I have helped. I shouldn't say we have helped several of your local constituents, and that's why I love this question, Madam Chairman. I've had several representatives. They needed something for their local communities. Name it, a vehicle or whatever. And so we were able to work with those communities, get them online, get them registered into the program, assist them in helping to satisfy their needs and getting items to them. So it's a really good way of doing business. And the first way that you contact me, I want to give you my direct line. And if you will, I'm at 404-657-9441. And it's just alex.atwood@doas.ga.gov. And what I will do, Mr. Chairman and Chairman Smith, when I get off of this, I will get my administrative assistant that has all the contact points of myself and all our division deputy commissioners and all their contact points for you, and we'll get it right out to each and every one of you, because I'm excited. I've thought of maybe asking the speaker to come and speak to the caucuses and be able to tell them about DOAS and ways that we can help your constituencies, because we are an equal opportunity service agency, and we want to get out there and we want to help our citizens, and we want to help everybody that needs it within our state. And so I'm more than happy to get that to you, and would love for you to come over, would love for you to sit down with some of our folks. We'll be glad to put on a live presentation for you, as long as we social distance right now, and try to answer your questions and get more into the weeds, because we're doing some good stuff.
Well, thank you. That's probably good, Commissioner. Couple quick things. I know the state's about to purchase a lot of vehicles in this budget, and I was just thinking about that. I know we've had a lot of with COVID and everything going on with the pandemic. Do y'all foresee any issues there as far as obtaining those vehicles for the state?
I don't believe so. We manage under our fleet program. We have what's called a fleet manual and a policy 10. Now this is administered by DOAS, our Office of Fleet Management. Young lady named Jasmine Randall, and Jasmine is competent far above her years. She does a wonderful job over there, and we work in cooperation with OPB. And so we just updated and strengthened compliance, and we simplified the implementation of the fleet management program, and how that impacts directly on purchasing. Those updates, by the way, went into effect October 1st of 2020. What we did on a vehicle assignments, for example, we're trying to get a longer use out of our vehicles and a more focused use of our vehicles, so we're not wasting money. So once they're purchased, they come under our maintenance program. And so we changed the criteria to remove what was a 2-page process for assignment and overnight use of our state vehicles. And there's now one set of updated approval criteria for vehicle assignments. On our new vehicles, we removed the driven 14,000 mile threshold for agents to justify purchasing a new vehicle. And we've replaced that threshold with a new method of vehicle utilization, which measures the vehicle in its asset type category, whether it's a sedan or different types of trucks. I mean, a truck being used in the woods for DNR would be a little different than a vehicle being used on the expressway. And the median miles driven by all vehicles within that asset group. And so the agencies must now certify that the new vehicles purchased will drive at least 25% of the median miles driven by that asset type per state entity. And then for replacing that vehicle, we introduced a minimum utilization standard, which requires that if you have an underutilized vehicle, to be assigned on the minimum utilization standard of 25% of the median miles driven by that asset type for the state entity. You got to do that before you replace the vehicle purchase, before that request is made. And it replaced the criteria for vehicle requirement replacement of 135,000 miles or 10 years old to take advantage of what we call the efficiency of new vehicles. And this new criteria is also based on a valuation model that determines a vehicle's cost of ownership. And that's kind of legalese for if the cost of your vehicle that you're running, the maintenance starts outdistancing what the actual cost it would be to replace the thing, well, it's time to replace it. I don't care how good it's driving. So the fleet cost of ownership dashboard, we also put together for all of our fleet managers out in the state. And it's a display, it displays agency specific information for our fleet managers to be used in assessing data that is relative to the replacement of the underutilized vehicles. And it's a very detailed dashboard. They can get in it, they can analyze it, they can find what I call hanger queens sitting out there gathering dust and making sure that we're getting the biggest bang for the buck for the taxpayers, because we want our vehicles used, but we also don't want our vehicles costing more in maintenance than it's costing to replace. So we're taking a more focused look and a more taxpayer-friendly look in how we handle these 20,000 items. I hope that answers your question.
But my question is kind of from, I know we've got to purchase 321 trooper cars, and those are not normal cars. And just from a supplier standpoint, do y'all foresee any delays in obtaining these special type vehicles from suppliers? Do we use, multiple suppliers, or any fears there as far as that
not that's been brought to my attention, Mr. Chairman, but I'm on board down on that as soon as this call's over and make sure,
Okay,
and I'll get it right back to you. We have very good relationships with suppliers. Even we delegate our authority to agencies to purchase things. If it's a specific purchase for their item, whatever they may have, but we also provide oversight. We provide auditing, such as for the emergency purchasing. I know GEMA, we've purchased I don't know, last time I pulled it out, over $243 million in across Georgia state government, I think was our last number for PPE and such as that. We're auditing 100% of all contracts done by agencies for this. If there's an emergency contract, we're auditing 100% of them, make sure that we're doing them right. So on those things, we have very good relationships with our supply chain, with our suppliers, many of them that have been with us for years. And so it's very quick and very easy for us to reach out and get a good analysis as to when we're going to be able to get what we need. And if we have any roadblocks, I ought to know it quickly. So I will guarantee you that within probably less than an hour, I'll have that report back to you.
sounds good. Chairman Barr, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Atwood. I am always excited to see you, and just your passion for serving the folks of the United States from your early service all the way through now is inspiring to a young man. So thank you, sir.
Well,
My question is logistical, and I apologize for not knowing this. If I am, and let's just take DNR. So they're going to replace a bunch of their vehicles. So they go to y'all and say, hey, we've got, these trucks we're replacing, and they get the photos and y'all put them on your bid website. After that vehicle sells, walk me through exactly where that money goes.
After the money would go to the supplier, to the group that purchased it.
This is for their excess vehicles, right? It's beyond its life use. And,
once they're surplus.
Right. After it's surplus, where does that money go? Does it go back to that agency? Does it go into general fund? Help me out and understand where that money goes.
As I recall, and I asked this question about when I first came in, I'm almost certain it goes back to the agency and not the general fund, but I need to be sure of that, and I should know that. I apologize to you for not knowing that.
No, I'm just, so with all the new vehicles that we have seen, I'm trying to understand, right? Because DNR, their vehicle request was for, I believe, 45. And I think I broke their number down and it was only $22,000 per new vehicle. So I'm wondering if the sale of those other vehicles goes back on to help them purchase that. It just didn't make sense in my brain yesterday when I was doing some of the math on these vehicles. It didn't seem like enough money to purchase a vehicle. So just trying to understand the whole picture.
Yeah.
But I definitely, either maybe David can help me out with that, or somebody at your department kind of.
We'll find it out. We'll find it out. And there's also, understand, when we do a statewide contract, that's to the vehicles don't come to DOAS. What happens is we have multiple suppliers on that contract. We use the term contract. Probably is not the most descriptive word that could be used, because there are many contracts where there are multiple suppliers and an agency can pick which supplier they want to use. And it saves them from being able to have to go through the arduous process. We have a 7-stage process and to have a statewide contract. And it's kind of the gold standard for contracting, and we follow it very specifically because we have to be transparent, we have to be open, and it has to be fair. And we can't, when I took over, I told everybody in our organization that we're not going to have an ethical standard and wink at it. That's not going to happen here. And so So on the vehicle contract, we have multiple suppliers that the agencies, as I understand it, would then contract with and be able to purchase off of that. So once we get our statewide contract in place, we liaison with those folks, but the agencies are dealing more directly. And we also, on the surplus property issue, there is, I know, a percentage of the money goes back to the agencies. I recall that, but I'm going to have to get back with you. I need to know, does the entire amount go back, or do we keep a small percentage for handling that transaction? Because I'm very, very sensitive, Representative Barr, and anything I communicate to y'all, I want it to be dead on perfect. And maybe I'm overly sensitive about it, but I think it's important for anybody that sits in front of you to give you the exact information that you asked for. And so give me a little time. I wrote myself a note. I will get that. I don't know the exact percentage. I don't know if it's 100% or not. Now, there's some vehicles we'll take and we'll resource that to another group. So the vehicle will be actually go to someone else that may be able to use it, continue to use it. It may not be good for what DNR wants, but maybe some other small community could use it and we could use it there too. So I wish I'd had my good man, Steve Eakin, for me. He can tell you every nut and bolt in Georgia as to that goes, but we'll get that answer for you.
Commissioner, this is Paulette. I can answer that question.
Okay.
So a percentage of the vehicle proceed goes back to the agency on a monthly basis, and also at the end of the year, whatever is left over from operating expenses is also distributed back to the agencies.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Paulette. All right. Well, Commissioner, I don't see any more questions. David, we good on questions?
I believe so. I am not seeing anything in the chat right now.
Okay.
Well,
All right, well, Commissioner, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate the job you do, and always good to see you.
Well, same here, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping I miss y'all. When I first got here, I was able to wander over and say hello to old friends, but unfortunately we can't do it. But I'm hoping we'll all be able to get this behind us and be able to see each other face to face again. But if y'all need anything, and I will get you that list of all our contact points, including all our cell phone numbers, because I've had several representatives that have reached out to me, and that's the way they got me. And if you ever have a problem, if you're not getting what you need satisfactorily out of this organization, do not hesitate to call me directly, and it will be handled. I promise you that.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Next up, we've got the Department of Revenue, Commissioner Curry. I see that you're with us. Welcome, and glad to have you this morning. And your team, I see, is here with you as well. So thank y'all for being here. Appreciate the job you're doing, and look forward to hearing your update and how things are going and what the status is going forward. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Before we get started, Mr. Chairman, I think you'll find it, I hope you find it pleasing. I own a barbecue restaurant, and we're known for our coleslaw. And I had a customer come in the other day, and they said, what is the secret to your coleslaw? And just so happened, my cabbage delivery guy was coming in from the market. And I said, that's the secret right there. And you won't guess the name of it was on the side of the box. It was Chelsea Farms cabbage. So I gave you a little.
Hey, well, we might have to do a little more work here on the budget, David.
I appreciate that. Chairman committee, today I've got Ken Nash, our CFO of the Department of Revenue. I got Keisha Beavers. She's Department of Revenue Budget Director, as well as our Deputy Commissioner, Scott Graham and Jessica Simmons. First, I'd like to begin by telling you the Department of Revenue has adapted our operations in response to COVID-19 like so many other agencies. And while doing this, we were able to ensure that we met all the responsibilities to the state of Georgia and our taxpayers. The reason why I want to very quickly update the committee on these changes is due to the success of these changes. I foresee many of these operational shifts becoming permanent at Department of Revenue. Mainly, we found ways to become more efficient by better utilizing technology to get the work done while protecting our employees and customers. Just to highlight a few examples, since March of 2020, the department has greatly expanded teleworking and staggered work schedules to reduce the number of employees in the office. Mainly, we found ways also to, let me see, I've lost my spot here, Mr. Chairman. We also implemented an appointment system where walk-in customers can ensure social distancing requirements can be met in waiting areas. It was important to us to highlight the majority of our employees' work locations had changed. They have been asked to make some changes and they were very flexible. They've been able to maintain and increase their productivity during these changes. Production is up in the audits division. So far in FY21, they've already exceeded their total FY20 production by 33%. The average ROI per auditor has increased this fiscal year by $662,000, bringing the total ROI per auditor to $2.6 million. Our taxpayer service division, the processing time for sales tax returns and individual income tax returns has dropped dramatically in 2020. Our call center abandonment rate, which was not very good when we came in with 25% in 2019, has dropped to 6% in 2020. Our collections and our compliance division has slightly dropped $327 million, which was collected between July and December of 19 versus $309 million collected between the same time frame in 2020. However, based on the number of businesses impacted due to the pandemic, especially those in the restaurant and hospitality industries, we believe our team is continuing to make good progress with installment payment agreements to help taxpayers who cannot pay off their tax liability all at once. Compared to this time last year, the number of unclaimed property claims paid up is over 6%. Training for local government tax officials has been handled virtually, which has saved both time and money. In our motor vehicle division, usage of online services through Drive system has soared along with increased usage of the kiosk system. Last week, we launched phase 2 of Drives. You may be familiar with that. Department of Driver Services launched their portion of Drives. That was a 2-step process. And Department of Revenue completed its version upgrade, version 12. Through Department of Revenue's partnership with Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, the Alcohol and Tobacco Division completed their yearly underage tobacco operations or one time and completed 1,950 inspections through the program FY21. The Alcohol and Tobacco Division also quickly implemented the Alcohol Delivery Program, which was a bill that was passed last year. Department of Revenue has also implemented virtual hearings for alcohol and tobacco citations, which has allowed the department to continue to enforce alcohol and tobacco laws without affecting the due process rights of licensees. Early in the pandemic, the department's legal affairs team worked to amend our process and rules to allow for e-signatures on returns and forms. Now, a vast majority of these documents can be submitted with e-signature and we can also quickly adopt the governor's executive order for remote notarization. We also overhauled our internal intranet site we call DORIS, Department of Revenue Information Site, which allowed us to better communicate important information to department employees, keeping everyone up to date on the best practices to combat COVID-19. Department of Revenues continued to recruit, hire, train employees through FY21 despite the pandemic. We do have retention issues on the lower paid positions like so many other agencies. These positions typically are the customer service positions and call center agents, but this has always been an issue for the Department of Revenue. Finally, the largest undertaking for the department FY21 has been something I mentioned last year. It's the migration of the state's integrated tax system to the cloud. The state of Georgia will be one of the first states to move this tax system to the cloud. This platform migration, which we expect to be completed next month, will make the department more efficient and flexible to provide better service to taxpayers. We were given the green light just yesterday by Mr. Kelly Farr to go ahead and implement this project. We expect to go down February 5th. Should take us about 5 days. Again, this new platform will drastically increase our productivity, operational effectiveness, as well as our flexibility. You can see since I last presented to the committee in June of 2020, the department has found numerous ways to do more with less while also successfully navigating the changes that we have faced due to the pandemic. Now on to the FY21 budget changes. Our budget is pretty simple this year. There were 3 changes. To highlight these changes for the committee, the governor's amended the budget adds additional funding in 3 areas. The first is FLIPA grant funding. It's $25 million for the Forest Land Protection Grant. This allows the department to retain 3% of that 25 million, but that goes to our qualified timber property program. So far this year, we've had, I believe, $32 million in requests from the local communities and counties. $25 million will go a long way to satisfying those requests from the counties. If any more money is given to the FLIPA program, that money will flow through. It is a first come, first serve, first in, first out type of program. So any county governing authority that's asked that did not meet the $25 million limit, they'll be given funding, assuming that funding is increased. The second is an increase of $86,000 for an additional resource for Department of Revenue. We needed this resource for the implementation of Senate Bill 375 from 2020, which is the bill that now requires licensure and taxation of vapor products. The final increase, the third and final increase, is $81,584. It's an adjustment to reflect the FY20 fireworks tax collections. This is money that was paid out on October 15th. It's just reimbursed to the budget. We floated the money out a little while. We're happy to get that money back because we are on a shoestring budget. We're able to do what we need to do, but we're happy to get that money back to our budget. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it over to you and see if you got any questions for us. Mr. Chairman, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Chairman Barr, did you have a question? Or is that from the previous?
That may have been from the previous, and the hand's been up a pretty good while.
Okay. All right. On the, I've got a few here, Commissioner. As far as FLIPA goes, I know we've got 25 million in the amended and a proposed 25 in the 22. Do you foresee that covering us through 22, or is that still yet to be known? Or
I would say that's yet to be known. Like I said, we've got $32 million in requests this year already. So when you go back and look, and I should have that Excel sheet pulled up, Ken may have it. We average well over $25 million a year. I don't have that exact number. I can get it to you, but I don't expect every county to receive funding with 25 million.
Okay. All right. Well, I know the counties, they went to a digital application process on that. I assume that's working very well, being you've got 32 million in requests.
That's right.
Okay. Good, good. All right. On the retention, you mentioned some of your call center employees. What's the starting salary in that position?
Like so many, it's around the mid-20s. We've got different classifications, but we can hire people from 25 to 27,000. And I'll be honest with you, majority of our workforce is African-American. Majority of the people in those positions are female. And Mr. Chairman, I don't have to tell you, it's probably extremely hard to raise a family on that kind of money. But that is something that these people, they come to work every day. That abandonment rate, that call center number, that is a reflection of the type of individual we hire at Department of Revenue. We were able to shift some things around, but if those people don't answer the phones, that number doesn't look that good. We have exceptional employees. And I know, like Commissioner Atwood said earlier, he bragged on his agency. I could say the same thing about ours. We've got 920 employees here, and they all come to work every day to serve these taxpayers. If there was a magic well that you could go to and draw more funding, I would say that that's the folks that probably need it most. The folks making the 20s. When you're paying somebody $10, $12, $13 an hour, it's hard to raise a family.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's kind of why I asked. I know we've had the same theme in some of our other agencies, but I know even at EPD, the feds were stealing their employees. But yesterday, we talked with driver services, and they're losing a lot of their employees to Burger King and McDonald's,
right?
Which makes things tough. So,
well, we had a Chick-fil-A at town that they were paying kids $15 an hour to come work there, a kid. Our taxpayer service division and motor vehicle division are probably our two lowest paid divisions. Now there's lower employees in each division. Each division is going to have its lowest paid employee, but I would say our motor vehicle division and taxpayer services are our two that are probably paid the less. Our taxpayer service division, they have to get to work. Their job doesn't allow them to telework. They have to get up every morning, come into the processing center, process income taxes, process the mail.
That's right. And then the last question I have, which you kind of already answered it really, is just, we've got a pretty big tax season coming up, and you did take a lot of cuts in this last budget cycle. So my question was just, are y'all ready, and do you feel like it's gonna be able to get everything done? But it sounds like with the pandemic, you've actually been able to put your technology to use and become more efficient. It sounds like y'all ready to take on the tax season, and so that's good to know. But we'll keep looking out for you guys. Committee members, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Chairman Smith?
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. I have one question, and it goes to your screening process before you actually interview. And I believe they have to have an applicant has to have a certain level of clearance, security clearance, to be able to work for you. I know that's also true with driver's license and other areas when they deal with personal confidential information. So it might help our committee to know that although they can go work at McDonald's, they have to have more clearances to work for the same amount of money with you. Can you just expand on that for a minute?
Madam Chair, I would be happy to give you a list of everything they have, the kind of background information we go through. I would have to get my HR director just to get a list of all of that, but you're right. We deal with some federal tax information. We deal with a lot of confidential information. They have to go through background checks. Our employees have to be sure they pay their taxes on time. That's something that they're not allowed to be delinquent on their taxes. So there's a long list of things we require at Department of Revenue. Our bar is set kind of high. But if you'll allow me to, I'll reach out to my HR director. I'll get a list of everything our employees go through and have to match and meet, and be happy to get that to you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, one more question. Can we compare the benefits they get as being a state employee, for example, insurance and such as that, with what might be out there on say a McDonald's market? So sometimes benefits offset salary, and that would be another question, Mr. Chair.
That's a good idea.
I'll pull all that together for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else? David, did we get everybody?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Within your motor vehicle registration and tiling division, when I've had some conversations with car dealers, whenever titles are being requested for vehicles that are traded in, that it takes quite some time to get that title. Does that come through your department there, or does it come through a different agency? And can you update us on that time frame for getting those back for those that are requested?
That tiling does flow through Department of Revenue. I would be interested in talking to your the individual dealer. We have a great working relationship with Georgia Independent Auto Dealers Association as well as GADA. And when Drives was first implemented, there were some hangups, some e-titling issues, some third-party vendors. It was my understanding we had a lot of those situations straightened out, that it improved drastically. So if you've got a constituent that's having any issues, I would encourage them to reach out to me directly, and let's see if we can get that straightened out, because I've not heard of any issues necessarily with titling. But I'll be happy to. And you give them my personal cell phone number. I give my personal cell phone number out to each and every one I talk to. It's never a bother. If you've got a pen and paper, I'll give it to you here on this meeting, and everybody listening can have it. But it's 678-672-7456. 678-672-7456. That's my personal cell phone. Tell them, give me a call or you can give me a call. We can talk offline. But if we're having issues with titling, we want to get it straightened out, but I've not heard of anything lately.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, well, Commissioner, I don't see any more questions. We don't have anything in the chat. I don't have anything, but just want to close with thank you for the job you're doing over there, and look forward. Hope we have a good tax season and we collect lots of money and things continue to go well for our state, and we'll continue talking to you guys, and probably more importantly, keep making that coleslaw.
There you go. There you go. Well, the collections are coming in. I think that Ken Nash can tell you we're over $1 billion this time, same time last year. So revenues are looking good for the state of Georgia.
Good deal. Well, thank y'all for the job you do and all your staff. Appreciate
Thank
y'all.
you so much. Thank you for having us.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, next we've got banking and finance. Commissioner Hagler, are you with us? I see you're there.
I am, Chairman Watson. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to speak with you and the members of the committee. I know that, as you mentioned earlier on, there are a couple of folks that may not be familiar with the banking department, or some of you that only see me once a year. So I thought I'd give a quick background just to kind of refresh there. We are section 14 of the tracking sheets. That's page 5 out of 17. The banking department has two main programs. Financial institution supervision is the first one, and that's line 14.2. We regulate 125 banks in Georgia with $128 billion in total assets. Some names that you're probably familiar with would be Synovus, Ameris Bank, United Community Bank, and then many of the community banks that are headquartered here in Georgia are state chartered that we regulate. Well over 80% of the banks here in Georgia. So we continue to see merger activity in the state, particularly in the banking portfolio, but my team and I were very excited to be a part of the opening of 2 de novo banks, 2 new banks in 2020, Kraft Bank in Atlanta, as well as Classic City Bank in Athens. There's very little de novo banking activity in the United States right now, so I think it speaks very well to the economic state of Georgia to see a couple of banks opening up. And even though we've had consolidation in the banking industry, the assets under supervision continue to grow almost 13% this last year. So generally what is happening is we have fewer banks, but they are becoming larger and more complex. So unfortunately, it doesn't make our job any easier having a lower number. Actually, it makes it a little more challenging. We also have 49 credit unions that we regulate with $25 billion in total assets. Delta Community Credit Union, Robbins Financial, Georgia's Own are just a few that you might recognize. A lot less consolidation or merger activity in the credit union portfolio, and it actually grew this year. We converted 3 federal credit unions over to state chartered credit unions during the year, and we've continued to see assets grow in that portfolio as well, over 20% year over year. I did want to take a moment to brag on our banks and credit unions. The vast majority of them entered the pandemic in very strong financial condition, and they've stepped up big time to help, literally working around the clock to get as many of the 152,000 PPP loans into place in Georgia. That's $14.3 billion into the hands of businesses in our state, and they're working on round 2 right now. So they've also been working with their customers on loan deferrals and debt restructurings to get them to the other side of the pandemic, and they've done all this while protecting their staff and customers. From a health standpoint, trying to reconfigure how to do lobbies and drive-throughs and things of that nature. So very proud of the industry for stepping up. Our second main business line is our non-depository financial institutions division, and you see that in section 14.3. Here we regulate over 22,000 licensees. These are your mortgage and loan originators, mortgage brokers and lenders, our check cashiers, money transmitters, sellers of payment instruments, and as of July of last year, that included the installment lenders. We continue to see strong growth in the number of licensees, again, which I think is a very good indicator of Georgia's strong economy. Also wanted to highlight here the mortgage industry. With mortgage rates being very low, the folks in that industry too have been working around the clock, day and night, to handle all the refinance business that's out there. And that's been a great source of cash flow for many Georgians as they've been able to move into a lower mortgage payment. They've also been very busy with mortgage deferrals and things like that, helping Georgians that are in need. So focusing a little bit more on the 2021 amended budget, again, section 14, page 5 of the 17, you'll see that we're shown as a flat budget, $12,134,000, and then it's all zeros for the adjustments. I did want to be sure to note that that figure does reflect the 13% reduction that we incurred from the last budget year. And also note that we're 100% state funds. So with 85% of our expenditures being personnel, we achieved most of that reduction through retirements, not backfilling positions where employees left. And I'm afraid we did have to let 2 employees go. We also cut the training and travel budgets. We closed 2 field offices, and we trimmed any and every expense we could find that we could get away with. Fortunately, we got to the point where we didn't have to do any furloughs for the staff. Kind of a pandemic update. Our department has essentially been working remotely since March 16th, when I basically called all our examiners and our banks and credit unions and told them just grab the documents that you need and head out. We've always been a mobile workforce though, so the move to remote work is pretty natural for our staff. Even folks that work out of our main office like myself, years ago we moved to laptops instead of desktops, so working from home was pretty seamless. That is to say that we still had some additional expenses related to increased telework in the form of getting scanners, printers, monitors, cell phones into the hands of staff. Also, one big one is we had to increase our bandwidth at our main office. With everybody on the VPNs, it really took a toll on being able to dial in. But fortunately, we had, I think, $177,000 in CARES Act funding that helped to cover some of those costs, as well as costs related to PPE and our extra cleaning supplies, those kind of things. So certainly it's been a challenging year, but the industries we regulate have been incredibly good partners throughout this, helping us continue to do our examination work remotely. I don't think we'll ever return to pre-pandemic business operations, but ultimately what I envision is some kind of hybrid form of more work remotely but some in person. Overnight travel and long commutes has always been an issue that we've had to fight with in terms of being examiners. And it just is real rough trying to maintain staff when they've got a grueling overnight and commuting travel. So one of the benefits, if you will, from the pandemic, such as doing a better job with remote work, is something that I think we'll be carrying forward from here on out. We'll just need to find a nice blend. When we talk to our bankers and folks, they would like us to not be there for 2 solid weeks with a team of 7 people, for example. However, they don't want us not coming at all. If we're going to have criticisms of their institution and be discussing some of the loans, that's when they really want to have some face-to-face time. So I think we're aligned with where we want to go here. We still certainly have some challenges. One of my biggest concerns is with all the retirement and turnover when we're training new employees in a remote environment. That's something we've got to work out. A great deal of examiner development is on-the-job training throughout their career, particularly though in the early days. And our ability to work collaboratively is very important. And video conferencing isn't completely filling that need right now. So we're looking at different ways to do that. And like I say, if we can get on the other side of this virus, then I think we can get to a hybrid method that'll work for us. One last thing I wanted to highlight is the Georgia Installment Loan Act, as I mentioned before, is July 1st. We've been working with that program, the installment lending industry, to transition them over to the banking department from the office of the insurance commissioner. First, I want to thank the staff at the insurance commissioner's office for being very generous in their assistance with helping us move that program over. this has been a major undertaking, and there have been some challenges along the way. But our goal is to be as accessible and transparent as possible, and to really solve those issues as soon as they arrive. And I think we've been very successful with that. I'm happy to report that the industry has successfully transitioned over to our electronic licensing system, the NMLS, which really was the hard part. And think everybody now has already seen the benefit as we've gone through a renewal process, which is super easy compared to prior to being on the NMLS. And they're also seeing the benefit of the ease of electronic payments being made. So I think our hard work's already proving to pay dividends. I would note that NDFI's budget line 14.3 includes funding that came over from the installment lending program. But I would note that as part of that movement of the program, there was efficiencies anticipated, and that figure that we received was 24.5% less than what it had been at the insurance commissioner's office. So in the interest of time, I'd like to close by just publicly thanking my staff for their incredible hard work and adaptability during this last year. Very proud of the work that they've done for the citizens of Georgia. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Okay, well, thank you, Commissioner. And I do have a few questions, and the members may as well. But first question is, could you tell the committee, just doesn't have to be exact, but roughly what your agency brings in to our state as far as money goes, revenue?
Absolutely. We typically anticipate about 21 million in income, and we typically are somewhere in the range of 21 to 23 million. I was a little concerned with BB&T's acquisition of SunTrust that we would see a big drop, and we might eventually, but with the refi business being booming on the mortgage side, the additional fees collected as a result of that, as well as additional 4,000 MLOs moving into the Georgia market or adding the Georgia market to their licensing, has largely offset the drop off from SunTrust. So we're still looking at a $21 to $23 million revenue number, which I would note is as far in excess of what our expenditures are.
I would think so, and would think it would be pretty important to make sure you have the resources you need to collect that 21 to 23 million. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And also, as far as the installment loan, I just wanted to commend y'all on the job that you're doing there. I've heard great things, and was told that I needed to tell you guys that you need to be commended for your flexibility and the way that you've been working with those folks as well.
Thank you. That means a lot to us, and I'll pass it along to the team. They've been working, like I say, quite hard during the last 6 months on that.
Good. Appreciate that. And you kind of touched on your retention and issues there. And I assume, are you still having problems in that area? What's the status there?
Yes, sir. It is a problem. It's hard to, I don't know how to say it, but luckily for us, that problem allowed us to meet the budget cut. But it is a big issue. Of course, I don't really even feel like I can complain after hearing Commissioner Curry's story about his entry-level positions. But all things relative, when we hire examiners, we're looking for folks that have college degrees in finance, accounting, things of that, business degrees in that area. Our starting salary is somewhere around 35 to 36,000. And over the course of several years, they have opportunities to be promoted and receive raises. But when you look at, when we compare ourselves to banking departments across the Southeast, I'm not exaggerating when I say that we have fallen behind the state of Mississippi by a good bit in terms of what we pay our staff. What compounds that is the Federal Reserve of Atlanta is located here in Midtown, as is the FDIC's Atlanta Regional Office. So, we got a reference check just the other day on one of our star employees from the FDIC. So expect we'll lose her in the near future. we lose folks to the industry that we regulate on a regular basis. But we did a salary study in comparison as to what would it take to get our staff's salary 80% of what the federal government pays. And the federal government, the Fed and the FDIC, they're tied to the industry. To move it to 80% would be something like $3 million for our agency. I could get away with less than that. Again, we stress work-life balance. We're a much smaller organization, so our examiners typically feel a lot more empowered and have a lot more decision-making authority than our federal counterparts do. But we're so far out of the ballpark that I can't blame folks for looking at opportunities there, because it's not uncommon for them to double their salaries by moving over to a federal agency. And like I said, the fact that we've fallen behind our state peer group is very telling as well. So it's a challenge. We're doing everything we can, but there are some financial limits eventually on what you can do.
Right. Well, and that you brought up something that I hadn't thought about too, as far as training goes. When we're in these days of COVID and you do hire new people, it's hard to train them when you can't be side by side or doing that in person. So that's another dynamic that I hadn't thought about for all of our agencies, really. As they try to bring new people on, it's hard to train people when you can't be close to people. So
yes, sir. We're very active with our trade association in Washington, and so it's an issue that all 50 states are working on. We have 2 new examiners that started the other day that we're going to be dealing with it. But I know, like, my colleagues in Utah had hired a couple months ago, hired 9 on the same day, and so we're not alone with trying to find ways to, like I say, to bridge that gap between on-the-job training, book training, videos, things of that nature. It's just, during my development as an examiner, most of what I learned was sitting around the boardroom table at a bank, working with a team of 7 or 8 folks, listening to the conversation, asking questions, hearing the answers, and that's just hard to replicate through video conferences. So, but we're working on it.
Right. Well, thank you for the job you're doing. Appreciate all that your team does over there. And I don't see any more questions. But we appreciate you being here. Thank you for what y'all do. And we'll see what we can do to help you as well. So be talking soon. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the support and the kind words.
Thank you. Members, if you will, just hold tight for just a few minutes. We need to circle up real quick. If you'll just be patient for just a few minutes, and we need to talk together real quick. So